Well, almost 24 hours on from the collapse of the Eddie Howe deal, we're here to talk about, sadly, the links with some other managers. Last night, we went live twice yesterday night. You're here for a third show. We're doing the home run. It feels like it's just never ending, and it just gets funnier and funnier with every passing moment. Like you can't help but laugh, and we'll come to that in a minute. But we're going to sit here just now, and as you can already tell by the title of the stream and by the thumbnail of the stream, we're going to be talking about the links once again with none other than Roy Keane. It's all coming up again. Keane and Duff are being considered for the job, and we'll come on to talk about that. But Ryan, before we get into talking about Roy Keane himself and the links with him and the club, you've just got to sit for a minute and truly laugh at the situation we're in. We said this right before we started. Like, who would have thought a month ago that this is the position we'd be sitting live streaming and talking about? We thought we'd be talking about Eddie Howe being our manager. We've ate that humble pie. It's not happening. And now we're in a situation where we're talking about managers who were second choice, a manager from Australia, Roy Keane, who's been a pundit for 10 years. We have truly done this in what has been typical Celtic fashion.
Yeah, it's a complete circus, you could call it. It's been keeping on going for what seems like 2 months. It's nearly been 2 months since that story broke about Eddie Howe being considered for the job, and it has been over 2 months since Keane was first linked with the job. I know a couple of podcasts ran with it for a couple of weeks with that sort of link. It really is a bit of a desperate situation that we're in just now. We're 2-3 weeks away from the players coming back for pre-season training. We don't even know who the manager is going to be. It's a bit of a disaster, to be honest. I'm not looking forward to next season. I can't find much enjoyment or any anticipation for next season because I just don't like the way the club looks at the moment at all. I'm just filled with dread, I'll be honest.
The energy has been zapped right out of us over the past 24 hours about, we finally wrapped up the season, and all of us sat here, and especially on our podcast, we sat there and we said, we're buzzing for the prospect of moving on and getting this season done with and now moving forward. And now that's just completely gone. We thought we finally got a positive, and it is just typical, isn't it? Like, we can't have that with the way the last year's been. We can't have those positives, and it does well and truly feel like there is a banter years unfurling in front of our eyes.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, this is our Pedro Caixinha moment, but at the end of the day, Rangers didn't take this manager. They took Pedro Caixinha instead of this guy. But no, it feels as if we're back to square one with Roy Keane. He was the sort of first name to sort of have a concrete link with Celtic. We had rumours of Eddie Howe and maybe Enzo Maresca to a lesser extent. Obviously, we can't get him now. But, no, it just feels as if we're going back to candidates that were linked 7-8 years ago, which is... Yep. We're supposed to be pushing forward. We should have a young and up-and-coming manager in the role, and we're going back to guys that haven't been in a job for 10 years. Their only job they've been in is punditry for the last 10 years. And that's what he's known for now. I mean, I know he was known as a great player, but he's known as a pundit. That's what he's always getting looked at now. He's never looked as like a coach anymore because in the last couple of jobs he's failed, you could say. But no, he's viewed as a pundit now, and it's not the sort of guy that I'd be going for, definitely.
Right, so we're going to talk about Roy Keane obviously a lot in this kind of 10 or 20 minutes. We've been, I keep saying that, but we'll try our best not to stay on live for too long because these are available to watch back. But, you get to that point where there's so much to talk about. It is hard to condense it into sort of 10, 20-minute segments. You have to talk a bit more. My original plan today was to sit down, make a fact file video and look over who Ange Postecoglou is. That was my plan. I was going to go, right, that's it, because it looks as though he's going to be the guy. But when you see this, and I know there's not too much to base it off, the Daily Record have broke the article saying that the Keane and Duff have been considered for the job. At this rate, I don't know whether to trust the Daily Record or not, because it seems they've managed to get a lot wrong over the past couple of months. But that's the only kind of thing that is there. But I am almost convinced, and I said this, I think I said it on one of the two streams yesterday, you can talk about Postecoglou all you like, you can talk about all these other names. I am genuinely convinced we're going to end up at the stage where Roy Keane will be our manager. I'm not basing that off anything, just pure gut feeling. I have a horrid feeling that Roy Keane is going to be the man in the Celtic dugout. So I thought to myself, well, there's no point in making that fact file video today. There's no point in me putting the effort into editing, research, and all the rest of it to put that up, only for the news tonight to come out that Roy Keane is going to be manager or Ange Postecoglou has walked away from it. I'm almost convinced at this point it is going to be Roy Keane. Why? Because it's some fucking laugh. That is why I think it's going to end up being Roy Keane. I just feel it in my gut. I'm going to quickly jump over what the Daily Record said, Ryan, before we come to talk about it a bit more. They have basically said that Roy Keane and Damien Duff are reportedly being considered as a management duo at Celtic Park. Manchester United legend Keane spent a short spell at Parkhead as a player and is amongst the front runners throughout this new process. Duff was, of course, part of the backroom team under Neil Lennon in 2019. And yeah, he's not had a role in coaching since he left that Republic of Ireland job where he was assistant to Martin O'Neill. And the Daily Star report that Keane would take on the head coach role with Duff alongside him after the collapse of the Eddie Howe bid. Now, Ryan, the question is, we've talked a lot about, of course, Roy Keane and the fact that we don't think he's the right man for the job. Do you think, though, it makes more sense than a Postecoglou, or would you still rather go down that route? For me, it's really just a gamble with any of them. I really struggle to find massive positives of any, but I can definitely see why people might prefer the big Aussie rather than Keane.
Yeah, I said last night on that stream that we done, the second stream that we done last night, I'd much rather have the Australian guy in than, I feel bad in saying that, Postecoglou. Is that how you say it? Is that?
Yeah, that's
that
right.
Seems about right. I've been practicing in the mirror at night. Might as well get used to it. Now he might not even be the manager. Keane's
we're
a lot
easier to say. We're going to have a long podcast series if we're going to have to be saying that every week.
I know. I thought Postecoglou, I thought would have been the better choice because we know what we're going to get with Keane. We know what he's like as a manager. We know that he done an okay job at Sunderland, but he utterly failed at Ipswich. No, we know what he's all about. We know that I don't think you can change that much in 5-6 years in terms of philosophy while being a pundit. I just don't see that happening. And much rather have a sort of guy that comes in from the relative unknown with a proper philosophy that maybe does have links with the City group. I know there's positives and negatives to go with that sort of relationship, but if it makes sense to have someone that Fergal Harkin knows he can work with, then I suppose that's good in the long term for a club. But with Roy Keane, it just feels as if Desmond's getting his man. And it seems as if Desmond's interested to get his man sort of in finally. And this has been kind of thrust upon us. Maybe the Postecoglou story was put out there so that Keane was a more attractive option. But I feel like that's the complete opposite. I feel like that sort of mindset's the complete opposite. More people would want Postecoglou, I think, now than Roy Keane.
Yeah,
just due to the way Roy Keane is.
This is where it comes into quite a funny position for me, because we spoke about this in the last couple of streams, about how maybe Postecoglou will be looked at from certain elements of the support. Because he's not known, he's not been in the British game before, he'll be automatically dismissed. And that's certainly going to happen within elements of the media and in the Celtic support. You know, he's going to have those constant write-offs because he's not, you know, the bill of what we thought we'd get. But the thing is with Keane is he certainly fits that role of what I think a lot of the older supporters would like. And this is where it now comes to a 50-50 split between those two guys. I think you're going to see 50% of people, which I think me and you would sway towards and saying, I'd rather the risk with Postecoglou because we know it's going to be maybe something fresh. It sounds a bit more positive and a bit more ambitious. And then you're going to get 50% of supporters. I don't really know when I lie, to be honest, with these two. Honestly, I'd rather none of them. But Roy Keane's on that 50% of the supporters that go, well, he's played for Celtic. He's one of the greatest players to ever grace the Premier League. He's coached with Martin O'Neill. There is good things that they can certainly pick out about Roy Keane. A lot of people will love that sort of hard man, authoritarian image that is presented with Roy Keane as a leader on the football pitch, and they think he can bring that to the sidelines. But let's not escape the fact that, as you've already mentioned, this is a guy who's not managed a football club in over 10 years. And now Celtic are willing to present themselves as the opportunity for him to try and revitalise his coaching career, which I think is personally ridiculous. And the worst part about it is, whichever way this goes for me personally, I think whichever way this goes, it suits Dermot Desmond right down to a T. He's either going to get one of his pals, Roy Keane, someone who knows very well and gets along with, who will probably do everything Dermot Desmond wants him to do, maybe put up a bit of a fight because we know what he's like, but he's ultimately going to do what Desmond wants him to do, or he's going to get Postecoglou, a man who was clearly way down in the list of options for Celtic, happy to be in the position and probably finding himself quite lucky, and ultimately, as you said yesterday, could be a bit of a yes man. So ultimately, Desmond is winning here if it is any of these two men.
Yeah, I just feel like Desmond only He's only interested when he gets slagged off by somebody, when it gets driven like into a personal sort of battle with something. Obviously that happened with the Rangers semi-final. He got raging with the Rangers board members, goading them, and so he went out and get Brendan Rodgers. That's totally counterproductive to the way a football club should be run. He should be completely interested 24/7, or most of the time, with his other businesses as well. Either that, or you just sell up your shares and give it to someone who is more interested in taking the club forward. Because if Keane was to come in, I feel like it's a backward step. And I know people say, "Oh, this authoritarian role." Was Lennon not supposed to be that? Was he supposed to be the sort of commander in chief?
Yeah, but it was maybe the one that rallied the troops like they used to do in the old days, sort of thing. Aye.
And that worked out well last season, didn't it? 25 points behind your rivals after being 13 points ahead the season before. That worked out well. I just feel as if we're going in completely the wrong direction. And between these two coaches, I'll be perfectly honest, it's like being in the middle between a rock and a hard place. It's like that Simpsons. Remember
the Simpsons movie? Aye, and he's stuck on the wrecking ball. He's just
that's what I feel like we are
smacking himself off of each side, and that is where we are as a club. I don't understand why the club and the club have landed themselves. Lewis Laird is piping up the chat. I know smart cues. None of that here. No.
Don't get us into that.
But what the problem is yes, it's very backwards. But what the problem is now is we spoke about this. We've already said this. This is the position we've landed ourselves in through that because of that long drawn out process. No one wants to. It's very well us suggesting, we should be trying our best to try. And I'm not saying it was going to happen. It's not what I'm trying to suggest for a million years before the Rangers fans saying you wouldn't get any of these guys. But the situation is, you talk about your Favres, your Martinezes, your Diego Martinezes, your Peter Bushes. You talk about these guys, right? There's absolutely no... That ship has sailed because none of them want to be the second fiddle. So now we're in the position where we're forced to look to Roy Keane's and we're forced to look to Ange Postecoglou's and see Roy Keane at the end of the day. I don't think he'll care about being a second choice. It's a job for him. It's a management job. If Dermot Desmond interviews him again and sits down and says, you want the job's yours, Keane's not walking away for that, Ryan. He'd snap it up, I think. That's why I've got this horrible gut feeling that Keane is going to end up being the Celtic manager.
Yeah, he's knocked it back a couple of times before, hasn't he? But he's not going to knock it back now. I think this is the sort of... I think we would be getting him when his reputation's at its lowest, in my opinion, when the fact is most people think of him as a pundit now rather than a coach. I know I've said that before. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but in a way, Celtic are repeating themselves by going for the same people over and over again. They're not giving us anything new to go for. That's why we were all excited with Eddie Howe coming in, because it was someone new, refreshing, who we know would have completely revitalised the football club and got us on the right path again. I'm getting to the point now where if someone like Frank Lampard was to get linked with the job, I'd be like, take him now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And a couple of weeks ago, I would have laughed if Frank Lampard was even one of the front runners for the job. But see, now we're in that sort of desperate situation that a manager like Frank Lampard or even Steve Clark now, I was laughing at Steve Clark last night.
They're two names that now, after all this, seem attractive. Compared to Keane and compared to a guy we know nothing about, they seem like attractive names. Genuinely.
That's just the way it is now.
And we've said in the podcast time and time again, they're two names we didn't want anywhere near the club. I said, I don't want Lampard. I don't want Steve Clark. I like Steve Clark, but he's at the job that suits him, and that's the Scotland job. We don't want them anywhere near the club. But now, as the desperateness starts to kind of settle in with not just the club, but the fans now, they start to look like attractive names, and that's the issue.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's gone down so low now that you're beginning to take people that you wouldn't have taken beforehand. I saw Sean Maloney was mentioned in the comments. That would be like a dream appointment now when you think about it. But why would he leave Belgium, even as a coach of Belgium? Why would he leave to go to this absolute circus that's going on just now? That we've only got like 18, 19 days. In fact, I'm not sure, it's like 19 or 20 days until the players even come back for pre-season training. We don't even know who's going to be taking pre-season training. That's how bad it is. We've announced friendlies.
We've got 5 games planned.
I know 5 games planned, but no manager.
Yep.
And don't tell me they didn't know that Eddie Howe wasn't going to take the job before they put out those season ticket renewals on Wednesday, because they obviously did know, because you can't be in advanced talks that quickly with somebody. So this has obviously been in the background, and it stinks, to be honest. It stinks from the board.
we've been saying that, the seeds have been laid throughout the week. The signs were starting to be there. They were starting to show subliminally. The Tom Rogic stuff, the stuff about the coaches, everything else. We thought it was going to be imminent as soon as Bournemouth were knocked out of those playoffs. It wasn't. The seeds were there in front of us. They were just sprouting themselves, and we weren't really listening. We weren't really watching. Let's try and talk about maybe the one positive of Roy Keane. Well, a lot of people would look at as a positive of Roy Keane coming to the club, and that's Damien Duff coming alongside him. I think a lot of people were gutted when Damien Duff left the club back at the start of the 2020-21 campaign. He was replaced by Gavin Strachan and his iPad on the touchlines, and a lot of people were saying that maybe Damien Duff's absence from the training ground was one of the reasons that we ultimately had a big slip in form and standards. I don't know how much you can give to that. I'm not going to sit here and say he was the only reason that we were poor this year. Absolutely not. He's not the only excuse. Let's just be real about it. But we heard that he was a brilliant coach. We done really well when he was here in 2019-20. And then suddenly when a coach goes, it does create a sort of impact. So I guess there is a positive there with Duff being part of that coaching team, Ryan.
Yeah, I suppose it does bring back a sort of guy that's been in and around the team when it was successful, in terms of that sort of contingency that you were looking for. Maybe when you wanted Brown to stay as part of the team, Damien Duff would be part of the team that was successful in 1920. Obviously left to join the Ireland squad. I mean, I don't blame him, because that's his country at the end of the day. When your country comes calling, you basically take it. But I remember reading a couple of months before he did leave that a lot of the players were doing like one-on-one sessions with Damien Duff after training. Players like Mikey Johnson were staying behind after training to work on their game with him, and he was really highly thought of in the Celtic dressing room. So yeah, I think that would be one positive. I think the fact that Damien Duff left when the whole 10-in-a-row season was coming was a mistake. I don't know how much we could have done to change that.
Yeah, apparently, I remember him saying he wanted to go back home to be with his family and stuff. He apparently never got to see his family much here, so it didn't seem like Celtic had a lot of control in that. But maybe the situations have changed now, and he's willing to come back over to Scotland.
Because he get papped out the Ireland job, didn't he? After his controversy with that.
That's exactly what we need in our changing room, Ryan.
That's the way people think, though, and we've got to look outside the box. We can't just employ a guy because he's Irish and he knows the city and he knows the club. And we need to employ the best manager possible and the best coaches that are available for the job. That's why Eddie Howe was so important. I think he was the best coach available at that time in terms of our circle of the managers that we could have got at Celtic. It just makes me think that we've missed a trick on Enzo Maresca, all of this, to be honest. And I know I keep on mentioning him and putting tweets out about him, but I feel like he was the plan B, and we waited for so long for Eddie Howe that we've missed the boat completely on Enzo Maresca, and we might regret it if he does well with Parma.
It's just typical, isn't it? Like next year we're going to see Parma going like a European push in Serie A. They're in Serie A, aren't they? I think they are. Yeah, they're going to go like a European push.
Calcio Palma.
That's got to, and we're going to be sitting here thinking, wow, could have saved ourselves a lot of hassle, but hindsight's a beautiful thing, and sometimes we wish we had it. Yeah, it's just somebody's asking why am I wearing a Germany top. Just a nice top, isn't it? David Wagner, I bring him in. Look, it's like you sit down, and if you've got to be honest for a minute, I honestly, as we come to kind of wrap up this stream talking about the Keane news, people in the chat I've seen asking where's this Keane news coming from. Just to clarify, Daily Record broke a story about 1:20 this afternoon that apparently him and Duff are being considered, just to clarify there. But, and I know we've kind of alluded to this already, last night, Ange started to grow on me a wee bit. The more I looked in, the more I read, I was like, do you know what? It actually sounds like a bit of an ambitious appointment. There is certainly something to be excited about there. The whole unknown quantity, as you said, it left a sort of a lingering mystique as to what would be the future of Celtic with him in charge. But then as I slept on it and I woke up, the only thing I could think is, what the fuck are we doing? How have we ended up here? That's all I could say. I was like, how have we ended up here? We shouldn't be here. This wasn't. You couldn't fathom this. This wasn't meant to happen, and this should not be a guy that ultimately we're turning to. And now that Keane's been brought into the question, I want to end off the stream by asking who would you take out the two of them, because realistically, it looks like it'll be one of the two of them. But I honestly, I think I don't know, man. I'd rather just put Stephen McManus in charge. No, I'm joking. I wouldn't actually, but I mean, who do you actually go for there, Ryan? It's just, I don't know. It leaves a bitter taste in the mouth, to say the least.
It does. I think out of the two, I'd choose Postecoglou. I put out a tweet and I'll stand by that. I'd much rather have Lennon in the job than Roy Keane, because I know what a disaster, what an absolute clusterfuck it would be if Roy Keane was in the job. I don't think he'd last till Christmas. I think there'd be a bust up in the dressing room and he'd be gone, and then we'd be stuck with Kennedy again, maybe until the end of the next season, and then it keeps on going on and on and on. Do you know, this whole feeling, it just reminds me of when Lennon was appointed in the Shires, that sort of deflation that I felt. I just feel totally deflated now. And maybe I was a bit numb to it with, I don't know, I was laughing when Eddie Howe was, the whole Eddie Howe thing collapsed, because I was like, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. But I woke up this morning, I'm actually feeling quite gutted about it.
Oh, absolutely. I was absolutely. I was going to bed last night. Like, oh, hopefully, I wake up in the morning and there's some shock U-turn. That's what I was hoping for. But obviously, you can pray as much as you like, but it's never going to happen, is it?
Yeah, I know. And it's just to think that this time last week I was watching Brentford put out Bournemouth, and I was thinking, oh, it's going to be Monday. I was singing Bella Ciao and everything, and then now. I don't even want to sing Keane, Somewhere Only We Know. I don't want to be singing those songs. I don't even know what Postecoglou can go with. I saw a couple of ones going about, like the Human League, Don't You Want Me, Baby? I'm like, I just want Eddie Howe, to be honest.
You could just imagine like Keane already in the changing room with that. Barkas, oh, he's the most overrated keeper. Do me a favour, just right away.
See if he didn't like David De Gea, what's he going to be like with Barkas?
I know he hates De Gea. He hates De Gea. He's not going to have any patience in the world for Barkas. We're going to keep coming onto the channel, and we're going to keep reporting things as they happen. There will be a podcast hopefully tomorrow on Monday, as I've already said, where we'll dive into it a bit more. But it's put us all in a bit of a weird position. I don't know what videos to make. I don't know what to report, because things are changing. Lewis put in a message. Lewis Laird, of course, very reliable as always. Go and drop Lewis a follow on Twitter if you're watching. But Lewis put in the chat that there is reports that the appointment will be made as early as next week, which is, of course, what we've been hearing for months now. It was meant to be how this week. Oh, it was meant to be how this week. It was meant to be how this week. We've heard that constantly. But realistically, to me, this seems like it might actually be the one, which suggests it's going to be Keane or Postecoglou. I don't see the club now making one final push for a name other than those two. If it is going to be as early as next week, it's going to be one of those two, Ryan, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said yesterday, they're just looking to plug a hole now instead of pushing the boat out. They've pushed the boat out and they've had their fingers burnt by Eddie Howe, so I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're probably going to play safe with these two candidates, even though they're risks in their own right, but they just want a man in the door at the end of the day, won't they? And then they can get pre-season started. But I've got to say, I'm not looking forward to the next season at all. I don't feel any optimism whatsoever. But that's all due to Eddie Howe, to be honest. I was feeling optimistic about Eddie Howe, and now, I don't know, I just feel deflated about the whole thing. But hopefully we can get a couple of signings in the door that sort of renew my faith for next season. But I worry about us. That's all I'm going to say. I just worry about us.
Well, Ryan, that'll probably bring us to an end here. We've been going for almost 25 minutes. We've had over 5. Oh, and by the way, just as we come to the end, I have no clue what currency that is. I must admit. The Audi lad doesn't have a UEFA Pro license. I hope that's not true. That would be great, would it?
I actually read something about that last night.
Theory me. 55 SEK. I don't know what SEK is.
55, aye.
55, aye. Yep, that's nice, isn't it? But yeah, it's been a 25 minutes where we'll try to just take in everything, and this is going to probably be the style of the videos until our managers made live updates and reactions and opinions to what the managerial situation is. Realistically, as Football Prime Ginger saying there, realistically it's got to be one of those two. So it will just be updates until we can have something concrete to and sit down and talk about. You're going to be back on YouTube Live at 4 o'clock. Ryan, you're going to be over on the 67 Hail Hail channel with Hamish Carton. So shout out to Hamish and the team over there. If you want to go and hear Ryan talk some more about the managerial situation, then make sure to check that out at 4 o'clock. You're just non-stop at this, mate, right? I can only, I mean, I'm in the situation where I need to do it, but it really is just draining, isn't it?
It is draining, but at the same time, I need to get it off my chest because it will just fester in my head and I'll be really annoyed about things. So I'm glad that I'm given a platform to sort of talk about all of this stuff, because if not, I'd go mad. I can't believe that the highlight of my weekend is potentially going to be Man City winning the European Cup. But that's how bad it's
don't
got.
fucking away you. Is that how you want to end the stream? Aye. Talk about them when the big cup. Chelsea are taking it, mate. For one night and one night only, I'm going to be singing the Liquidator loud and proud tonight.
No way are you supporting Chelsea. You
of
can't
course
support
I'm
Chelsea.
What do you mean I can't support Chelsea? I like Manchester United. Why would I want to see City win the big cup?
But you like Celtic. And Celtic and Chelsea just don't go, unfortunately.
Oh, what a hero, by the way. Sakuraba, 85, 109 sec. Sorry for the 55, he says. It's okay, mate. It's all in good taste anyway. I don't get wound up too easily. But much appreciated for your 2 donations towards the end here. No, look, just do what? Let's try and end off on a bit of a... Oh, yeah, by the way, Ryan, are you typing away there, mate, in the chat?
Oh my God.
there you are, mate. Ryan McGinley. There's 2 of you. Let's do you know what? Let's end the stream on a positive note. Predictions for tonight. Harkin one last win at Man City.
Yeah, I can't see anything other than a Man City win. I'll be honest, right? See if Man City win, it's Tuchel's job under fire.
No,
because he's lost 2. He'll lost 2 finals.
I know. I don't think so. No, I absolutely not. I think that he'll get backed in the summer, and I see him going on to have a successful season next year. I think he's getting the best out of that team. Look, I know it's 2 cup final losses if he loses tonight, but at the end of the day, they were not expected to be in the Champions League final. There was no expectation for them to be there. I think he'll be backed heavily in the summer. And I think that he'll get the best out of players like Timo Werner and such consistently next year. So I'm going for a Chelsea. I cannot bear the thought. Look, I have always prided myself on saying that Celtic are one of the biggest clubs in this country, and they are bigger than Manchester City. And one of those reasons is because Manchester City would, and I always said that they would never have their hands on that big cup. And if they do it tonight, I will be absolutely gutted. But I've got to go for Chelsea.
3-0 Man City.
3-0.
Foden, De Bruyne, and then Aguero will come off the bench and score in his final appearance. It just has to be Aguero.
Okay. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Chelsea. Timo Werner double. The wee man. I love Werner. One of my favourite players on earth. Werner's going to be mine.
You're banking on him being onside though here.
He's got
that guy was born offside.
I'm going to be running about like that. Yeah. If I can put some respect on the former Leipzig striker's name, right?
This is how bad our streams have gone now. Like
we're talking about the Champions League final.
We're talking about we're the feeder club to Man City now. We're now part of the City group unofficially. We're talking about Man City. They're now affiliated with us. That's how bad it's got now. I mean,
eventually we're going to be there. I'm convinced that they're going to buy the club. We'll end off the stream there. Ryan, thanks once again for joining me. Everybody who's been watching, I really do appreciate it. Over 500 viewers. It's been a hectic 24 hours for Celtic. It will just get more hectic, and join us every step of the way. We'll be live as soon as there are any updates, unless I'm steaming tonight, then maybe not. But Ryan, thanks once again. And we'll see you all next time. And